Well, for more on what the decision means, I'm joined in Washington, D.C. by Jacob Funk Kirkegaard. He's a senior fellow at the Peterson Institute for International Economics. Mr. Kirkegaard, thank you very much for joining us on TRT World. Let's just begin with the reserve currency. There are very few known as a reserve currency to the IMF. Can you just explain why that is?
Well, the reality is that the term reserve currency probably denominates two distinct issues. One is the legal inclusion in the SDR basket, so to speak, which, as you said at the beginning of here, is essentially a sign of approval or a seal of approval for China's overall sort of importance in the world economy and also recent movements towards a more liberalized economy. And then there is a more sort of financial markets-based concept of reserve currency, namely, are other central banks around the world, or indeed global investors, choosing this currency to store their assets in? And that's essentially a market-determined issue, which today's announcement does not directly affect. And I think what we will see in the coming months and years is only a very slow transition of assets by central banks and private investors away from the dollar, the euro, and other existing SDR members into the renminbi. So this is a much more gradual process.
And one of the criteria for being included in this basket of elite currencies is that it's widely used and traded and so on. How widely used and traded is it? And to what extent is it still controlled, the value of the currency, by the central government?
Well, there's no doubt that trade invoicing in RMB has increased very dramatically in the last number of years. So this is in some ways a part of the test that was very easy for China to pass. But it's also very clear that while there has recently been additional liberalizations of the value of basically the band in which the renminbi can trade against other currencies, and of course, first and foremost, the US dollar, the renminbi remains a relatively tightly controlled currency whose daily valuation changes are not allowed to change very much by the Chinese authorities. So this remains a highly managed currency even after today's announcement.